Hi everyone, welcome to the Engage 2019 Recap Series. Today I'm excited to have Kurt Schroeder, our Chief Experience Officer here at AppTech, with us to demonstrate the powerful measures that could be helpful in understanding the customer experience and how to use those CX metrics to enhance the experience for our customers. A few items I wanted to quickly mention before I hand this off to Kurt. We encourage you to ask questions and interact with us during the webinar, so feel free to submit any questions in the GoToWebinar panel. And lastly, we are recording this webinar and we'll be sharing it with everyone, so look for an email in your inbox later today. With that, I'll hand it over to Kurt to start things off.
Great. Thank you so much, Whitney. Hi, everyone, and good morning. Excited to have you with me this morning. As Whitney said, my name is Kurt Schroeder. I'm the Chief Experience Officer, and today I'm just going to be talking a little bit about what you should be thinking about when it comes to measuring effectively your customer experience. And so we're kind of labeling this, CX measurement beyond NPS, and a part of that is just simply because, we believe that NPS is the gold standard. It's the one that's used the most, but it may not necessarily be the best measure when it comes to measuring the experience. And so what we're going to cover off on today is just a little recap on what Net Promoter Score is and what it's not, just to make sure we're grounded in our conversation. We're going to talk about some other metrics that you can use, talk a little bit about what makes a good voice of customer program, and then a little bit of a call to action for you to consider as you think about measuring your own customer's experience with you. So as Whitney said, if you have questions along the way, go ahead and type them in. I'll see them and I'll try to answer them in stream during the webinar presentation today. So we're going to spend a little bit of time about Net Promoter Score. So NPS, Net Promoter Score, and it's really a simple measure. It's a single question, which is, considering your complete experience with the company, how likely would you be to recommend us or refer us to a friend or a colleague? And it's really based on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not at all and 10 being, extremely likely. And so how that math sorts out, and this is really important, but they take a look at the concept of detractors, those that score from 0 to 6, passive, who score 7, 8, and promoters, those people who would refer, and 9 and 10. And so the math is the percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors equals your Net Promoter Score. And so it's a very simple measure to use. The science and research behind this has been proven time and time again. And so it has, as I said, become, the gold standard that organizations use. And in fact, well over 50% of the companies use Net Promoter Score in some shape or form. And really it started, well over 15 years ago with a book that Frederick Reichheld wrote at the time called The Loyalty Effect. And at the time, he actually espoused that we should ask 3 questions, 1 being, are you satisfied? 2, what's your likelihood to repurchase? And then the 3rd question that he presented in the book called The Loyalty Effect was, the referral question, how likely would you be to recommend? Over time, he, through research with Bain and Company, really reduced that down to the ultimate question, which was published in 2006, and really said, hey, you know what? If a person is willing to refer, then by default, they are also most likely to be satisfied and most likely to repurchase. And so that's what honed this in on this ultimate question, the Net Promoter Score question that we use today. And then over time, it's really turned into a management system of understanding customer loyalty, and how the customer is interacting with the organizations. And so Net Promoter Score has been out there for a while. It's served us very, very well, and it continues to serve us. And the nice thing about it is there's benchmarks now because it's been out there for so long. And so if you want to know kind of what a good score is, there's a variety of resources that you can go to get benchmarks within your industry. And so anything from FiOS from Verizon or TurboTax or American Express in terms of credit cards, or even online shopping, and you can kind of see what the benchmark is or the average Net Promoter Score is, and then see how these individual organizations or your organization would compare against those categories. And so Net Promoter Score becomes very, very good when it comes to benchmarking you against others in your industry and to see how you're doing compared to those and compared to the benchmark. And so that's really the power of Net Promoter Score as it exists today. And so the benefits associated with that is what we do know, and what's been proven time and time again, is that when there is a positive Net Promoter Score, there is positive business results. So there's a direct correlation. And so many organizations include Net Promoter Score in their overall balanced scorecard. It's being reported out onto the street. So there is a recognition of the power of the Net Promoter Score as it drives business value and business results. The other thing is it's a simple measure to use. It's really easy to implement. It's easy to use, and it really does help encapsulate emotion and intention. So and what I mean by that is this: when we ask the question, would you recommend, an organization to a family, a friend or colleague? The intention there is very clear, which says, I intend to do this. I would do this. And because it's intended to associate your own, if you will, personal brand to the brand of the company, that is the definition of loyalty. And so I'm putting my own reputation on the line when I recommend a company. If I would recommend something to you as an organization, and you have a horrible experience, not only are you going to think that organization is not all that great, but you're going to really question my overall judgment because of the experience that you had was so poor, and I recommended it. I raved about it. I said, man, this is something that you should consider. This is something that you should do. Well, the other thing I like about it is it really does a good job of taking into consideration the full range of the scale. So in other words, it takes into consideration the top and the bottom of the scale to create that Net Promoter Score. And if used correctly, and this is the real key point, if used correctly, can help understand and focus the organization on developing and delivering a better experience. So there's some really good things about Net Promoter Score. There's also some things that over time we're starting to understand and question about Net Promoter Score. And so there's been more and more kind of academic analysis of it, and there's starting to be some questions about its validity. So for an example, it's one thing to say, would you refer, but it's another thing to actually refer. And so the real question is, do people who say, yes, I would absolutely refer, do they really do it? And is it really driving business in that direction? And so there's some discussion now going on about, is it really as valid as we think it is? Second, it's easy to kind of get, obsessed with the number and the various benchmarks that are available. It's easy to get obsessed with, oh, you know what, we're a 20 or we're a 30 or we're a 50. And the part of the issue with that is that number moves around a lot. So it's really hard to understand, is there a trend emerging as we make improvements to the experience, and is this trend sustainable, especially when that number is moving around a lot? For those organizations, and we've worked with several of them, that they say, well, our net promoter score, is 70, which is just about beyond world class. And so then the organization kind of gets a little bit too comfortable. I don't want to say a little bit too cocky, but a little bit confident in saying, hey, we're doing everything right. We really don't need to focus too much. Our net promoter score remains high. It can also make the organization a little bit jaded. And what we mean by that is just simply, organizations that consistently on the other end of the scale score low, it may be simply because of the industry effect or external effects that drives the score down. And so the organization becomes a little bit jaded about it. And then one of the things that we're starting to find is market saturation, because so many people are using it. Are people really taking the time to think about their response and considering, would they really refer, and so what's happening is, are people really thinking about, are you really getting a bunch of false positives perhaps? Because people are just saying, whatever, here's a 7, here's an 8, and not really thinking about it. So interestingly enough, the other day I took my car in to get the oil changed on it, and sure enough, within 24 hours, I got an email from the place I took my oil change to, and there sits the net promoter score. Based on your experience, would you refer us, to a family or friend, for their next oil change? And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, it's kind of an oil change. So I don't know if I don't ever talk about my oil change except, in this case, when I'm talking about the net promoter score question. So, is it being saturated so much that it's losing its uniqueness and people are not giving it the quality of thought that we'd really like to see in order to make sure that the numbers are truly accurate? So I'm not suggesting for a second that anyone abandon net promoter score, but we certainly need to understand the pros and cons of net promoter score as it exists today. So moving on, we think that there's other metrics that should be complementary to net promoter score if you're doing it already, that we think actually are more honed towards understanding what the experience looks like. And so, again, net promoter score, a lot of people using it, but there's other ones that are starting to emerge, such as customer satisfaction, customer effort score. And as we look at this, some of those other metrics are starting to emerge and are being used by people as they consider what is the best metric to measure customer experience. And so just a real quick rundown of the things that we've seen and that we're starting to understand. So for example, we already talked about net promoter score. Customer effort score. So this is a well-accepted measure that really speaks to the interactions that a customer has when trying to accomplish something. And so, again, similar to net promoter score, a very simple question: how hard was it to accomplish what you wanted to today? And it's on a scale. And what we know from research is that there's a direct correlation between customer effort score and net promoter score. So if you can improve your customer effort score, net promoter score is going to come along for the ride. What we like about this, and I'll unpack this a little bit more later, is that customer effort score is much more actionable because you can tie it to a specific interaction, you can tie it to a specific goal that the customer was trying to achieve, and then be able to look at it and say, all right, where are we causing friction, where are we causing angst, where are we causing more effort than needs to be. Forrester recently came out with something called the Customer Experience Index, and what we like about this one is it's a composite metric, which means it has multiple components, that says, are we meeting your needs, are we easy to do business with? So a little bit of an analogous to the customer effort score. And the next one is around emotion. How does it make you feel? And so as we know, in a customer experience, in an interaction, there's two fundamental needs that a customer has: a functional need, what do I need to accomplish, and an emotional need, which says, how do I need to feel? And so this is one of the few metrics that goes after this concept of emotion in a very, very direct way. And we're we're big fans of that concept. Customer satisfaction is very traditional. It's been out there for a long time, maybe a little bit dated, and we'll get into that a little bit more. The other metrics that we're starting to see is around overall experience, and then also custom CX metrics that we see our customers trying to gravitate towards. So let's unpack this a little bit more when it comes to these individual metrics. So again, the first one is customer effort score. So this one is just saying, how, the company made it easy for me to handle my issue, and on a scale of 1 to 7 with strongly agree versus strongly disagree, what we look for is a percentage of customers that at least are doing somewhat agreeing that the company made it easy to resolve their issue, accomplish what they wanted to do today. So again, very much like Net Promoter Score, real simple question, and it's easy to be able to understand it. And here's what we know. By just moving a customer from a 5 to a 7 in terms of effort, you can increase, loyalty or Net Promoter Score by 2%. And we also know that if you go from a 1 to a 5, you're going to see a similar boost. And so this one is a little bit more actionable, a little bit more tangible, but yet again has a direct correlation to what we know about loyalty. The CX index, really speaks to a number of things. It speaks to effectiveness, ease, and emotion. So was the organization effective at meeting your need and delivering value? How hard was it to accomplish that? And how did you feel about that? And so what we know is when there's the scores are high around effectiveness, ease, and emotion, that it really drives the right-hand side of this equation around loyalty, which is retention, enrichment, and advocacy. And so again, this measure has a direct correlation to what we know about the Net Promoter Score and about emotion more broadly. And so what they look for, though, is what are the highly influential emotions, which are being valued, being appreciated, and confident, and the negative emotions, which is annoyed, disappointed, and frustrated. And so what is starting to emerge, especially as we live in this experience economy where customers have a functional need and an emotional need, that the way an experience makes a customer feel many times has a much, much larger influence on their connection and loyalty to the brand than effectiveness or ease of the experience. And so this seems to message a little bit counterintuitive to what we see in the customer effort score. And so what we're starting to believe is it's not a one size fits all. It's this combination of metrics that become very, very important to understand it. And so how do you calculate this? Real simple. They look at positive emotion, easy and meeting needs. It's on a scale of 1 to 5, and it creates a net score. And so we can see that if you have a score of 85 or above, you're doing excellent, good, okay, poor to very poor, and very poor is below 55. So again, a very defined algorithm to measure this and to calculate your CXI. So again, we're big fans of this. We really like it because it really does go right after a direct question around emotion about how did it make us feel. Customer satisfaction been out there for a long, long time. We're more and more we're seeing the scale being dropped down to 5 because it's best for a mobile environment. And we also always think it's important to follow up with an open-ended question that just says, why did you score us like that? Others be able to harvest that sentiment analysis and that verbatim responses to learn even more versus trying to kind of guess at what we believe the correlations, might be. and then custom metrics. And so, this is really, designed specifically for the organization. So for example, our mission says, we're going to use our technology know-how to enable our clients to deliver an exceptional experience to our customers. And so one of the things that we do is we ask a very specific question that says, how well are we achieving this mission for your organization? So this is really tied directly to our mission statement and understanding how are we connecting with our customers in delivering that. And so are they having a better experience with us? Are our clients, customers having a better experience with them because of the work that we've done? Or hasn't there been any change to the experience that our customers, or quite frankly, have we created a poorer experience for our clients, customers? And is it too early to tell or not applicable? And so this allows us to understand, are we actually achieving our mission as we do our work with clients? But this one is very specific to us, so it's a custom metric that we use. And you can extrapolate this and look at what might be valid custom metrics for your organization as well that's attached to your vision, mission, or strategy. So how should all this roll up? And what we advocate is every organization should have a voice of customer program. It should have not just one measure, but a system in place to really understand what's going on with the customer and how you're performing against that. And so it really should be customer-driven, outside insights, from the customer base that really drives the company and informs them and drives some actionability based on that feedback. So we see way too many of our clients that maybe have started a voice of customer program, and the results they're getting are interesting, but they're shared and they're kind of put up on a shelf, and there's really no action taken upon it. So it's not just doing the measure, it's doing something with the measure and the results once you see it. And so how does this all kind of fit into customer experience management framework? And we're fond of the Customer Experience Professional Association framework that they've put together, which is really around voice of customer insight and understanding what the customer needs and what the current situation is today, and really let that drive the rest of the customer experience work you do, and then remeasure and tie it back to the bottom line, and then rinse and repeat in that framework. And so we think voice of customer programs fit very, very well into a strong customer experience management framework as defined by the CXPA. And so, in a good journey map, one of the things we want to understand is, what are the pain points? What else is going on? And so the example we used here is the client that we worked with, and one of the things that was coming out was, they wanted to know how should they, contact the company? Who should they call? What are the options? So a number of things going on here that we wouldn't have uncovered unless we did the voice of customer to understand that, and then to be able to take action on it. So there's really 5 key components to a great, strong, sustainable voice of customer program. And we'll cover these off one at a time. First one is create the surveys, create the feedback loops, create those mechanisms at key touch points. And so there's a big difference between, and make sure you're clear on this, don't commingle these things. There's a big difference between a relationship survey that measures the focus and the health of the relationship versus transactional, which says how is that touch point. And so, the differences between the two, not only in terms of what they focus on, but even how they're administered, is very different. So number one, understand what you're going after. Are you going after an understanding of the relationship? Or are you going after an understanding of a key touch point experience? So first, understand what that looks like. Make sure you're focused on the right things as you go after, whether it's relationship or transactional. Second thing that's super important, if you ask a customer something, you should really respond to them. It's one thing to say, oh, your feedback is valuable to us, but then we don't necessarily close the loop with them. So we're huge fans of closing the loop with our customers. When we set up voice of customer programs for our clients, this is one of the things we build in. If you're going to ask a question, you're going to get feedback, make sure you close the loop with that customer, whether it's negative or positive, but in particular if it's especially negative. And many times customers just want to be heard and recognize that they were heard and recognize that they were understand. Third thing is, map your drivers. Make sure you really understand based on the feedback, where should you concentrate your efforts. And so, it's easy to create this 2x2 grid that looks at performance. how well are you doing this, satisfaction, if you will, and then how important is that to the customer? And so we can very easily see that the areas that we have the least amount of performance is around ease of shopping and overall product content, right? So let's understand what that looks like, and we can then look at and tie it back to our Net Promoter Score comments between detractors and promoters. The fourth step is then developing a dashboard that pulls all that in together. So you can look at your net emotion score from your CXI index. You can look at overall Net Promoter Score. In other words, you're looking at things in a holistic manner that becomes very important to you. And so it's not just one measure. Again, it's looking at those measures across the different metrics that you want to be able to adopt it to provide you the best possible influence and action that you should be taking. And then you know, be clear on what you want to use that dashboard to communicate. And so, you know, it's one thing to have a dashboard, it's another thing to really start visualizing that experience and that feedback that you're getting from your customers. And so then finally, the fifth step is, this is probably one of the most important steps, and a step that many organizations struggle with, is once you understand what those trends are and those findings, then put together a cross-departmental team to go and take action upon those and create solutions, and make sure that those solutions, you know, work and don't break something else, and, you know, the kind of the law of unintended consequences. And so review the findings, get a cross-functional team, follow up the insights, make sure people and leadership knows what's going on with the entire company, i.e. through the dashboard, not just individual departments. And so those are the 5 key things to put together a great voice of customer program. We talked about some key metrics that you should be considering to include in that voice of customer program. And then we really want to make sure that you're able to execute that well. So trying to land the plane here on time. Really appreciate your time today. And so my encouragement is take action on this. Really take a look at the measures that you're using today, and ask yourself, is there a better metric out there? Should we include the CXI index as a part of our metric program and our voice of customer program? Are we doing the right things to really bolster our program to the level that we need it to be? And then finally, we'd love to talk to you more about this. And so don't hesitate to reach out to us. You see my contact information there at the bottom of the screen. And with that said, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and look forward to speaking with you soon. Thank you very much.